Tēnā koutou, o whānau, o Unitarians, o Tamaki Makaurau. Tēnā koutou nā manuhiri. No mai haere mai ki te whāne karakia o te atua. Ko Ted Zorn toko ingoa, no Charleston, South Carolina, USA aho, ko Kupa River te awa, e noho ana aho ke Tamaki Makaurau. No reira, e rau rangatira mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome all, church, whānau, and visitors to this place of worship made sacred by our coming together today and by Auckland Unitarians coming together here for over 123 years. May this time together be a gentle refuge for the spirit, an interlude of peace amidst the busyness of life. It is a space to pause and reflect on our interconnectedness, to explore the deeper meanings of our existence, and to consider how we may contribute to the well-being of all beings on this earth. Today, may it be a space of empathy and understanding where we reflect on what is right and just and how we might play a part in building a world that honors the dignity and worth of every person, as our principles suggest we should. Welcome to those joining us remotely, to those here in the building, and to those watching the recording at a later time. To those visiting us here for the first time, we are so grateful that you've chosen to be here. To our cherished members and regular attendees, thank you for returning to continue our shared journey in the pursuit of meaning, compassion, and understanding. I hope those in the church will stay after the service to join with us for morning tea. It is our sacrament of hospitality. My name is Ted Zorn, and I'll be leading the service today. We're very fortunate to have as our guest speaker, the Reverend Alec Toleafoa. I just asked how to do this, and I'm going to do it wrong. Toleafoa. And Alec is here with his partner, retired Associate Professor Melanie Anai. Yes. So wonderful to have you both here with us, and really look forward to your talk later this morning. So Alec will be speaking on the topic of prophetic truth in a time of state-sanctioned racism. So I'm looking forward to his talk, as I'm sure you are as well. My opening words were chosen by Alec, and this is from the book of Isaiah, the New International Version. Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees, to deprive the poor of their rights and withhold justice from the oppressed of my people, making widows their prey and robbing the fatherless. What will you do on the day of reckoning, when disaster comes from afar? To whom will you run for help? Where will you leave your riches? Light the chalice for us, please. We see this flame rise, and with it our spirits. We see this flame rise, and with it the warmth of our love for community and for the interconnected web of existence. We see this flame rise, and with it our burning desire for a just, fair, and peaceful society. We see this flame rise, and with it the fiery commitment toward transformation to a better world. I invite you to join with me to recite the covenant of the congregation. I'll share the words on the screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest to truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other and with our God. My reading it includes two excerpts from a speech by Sophia Scholl, who was a German student and anti-Nazi political activist who was active in the White Rose nonviolent resistance group in Nazi Germany. She was arrested and executed in February 1943 at the age of 21. Here's the first excerpt. The real damage is done by those millions who want to survive. The honest men who just want to be left in peace. Those who don't want their little lives disturbed by anything bigger than themselves. Those with no sides and no causes. Those who won't take the measure of their own strength for fear of antagonizing their own weakness. Those who don't like to make waves or enemies. Those for whom freedom, honor, and truth and principles are only literature. Those who live small, mate small, and die small. It's the reductionist approach to life. If you keep it small, you'll keep it under control. If you don't make any noise, the boogeyman won't find you. But it is all an illusion, because they die too, those people who roll up their spirits into tiny little balls to be safe. Safe from what? Life is always on the edge of death. Narrow streets lead to the same place as wide avenues, and a little candle burns itself out just like a flaming torch does. I choose my own way to burn. And now the second excerpt from just before her execution. How can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give himself up individually to a righteous cause? Such a fine sunny day, and I have to go. But what does my death matter if, through us, thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action? Now, let me introduce our guest speaker. Having completed training at Knox Theological College, University at Otago, Reverend Alec Toleafoa, sorry Alec, was ordained in 1986 to ministry in the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa, New Zealand. During the course of this ministry, he has been involved in the care of people in urban street communities, youth, and adult custodial and residential settings, developing youth leadership and personal development skills learning. His interest in this work has its roots in his own experience as a member of the Polynesian Panther Party in his youth, with its emphasis on working for justice. He is currently involved with the Polynesian Panther Party Legacies Trust's Educate to Liberate program in schools, and has been since its inception in 2011. I'll just say now, in lieu of our usual small group discussions, we will have a Q&A afterwards in which Alec and Melanie will be willing to take questions. And Melanie, I'm told, is also a Panther. So it would be a wonderful opportunity to ask questions of them after Alec's talk. At this point, though, I welcome Reverend Alec Toleafoa.
Don't be alarmed. I know it looks like a big folder. It's big writing. God's peace be with you all. Kia ora tātou katoa. Anuinga mi hatu ki tātou katoa. Tēnā koe, Ned, Ted, mo tō mihi mahana ki a kau rā mātou Palani. I want to just add to that wonderful introduction how pleased I am and Milani are to be here and worshipping with you today. And we welcome also and greet those people who are worshipping with us online. This isn't the first time or even the second or third time that I have been in the precincts of this wonderful whare karakia. And I think it's important this morning to bring your attention to those connections that we have with this church, the Polynesian Panther Party and the Pacific community in Ponsonby in general. Many years ago, actually, in April 1973, the Polynesian Panthers, the Citizens Association for Racial Equality, the Auckland Committee on Racial Discrimination, we met here in this church with the Minister of Justice, Dr. Martin Finlay at the time. We were not happy with how the justice system was dealing with Maori and Pasifika people. We were working with a statistic that Maori and Pasifika people were 8 times more likely to be convicted than Pākehā for the same offence. So we wanted the minister to know that. We wanted the minister to see the people who make up that 8 times more likely. We wanted the minister to go back and make justice and the law accessible to all people, because it wasn't at the time. It was only if you were rich could you afford legal services. We wanted the minister to make changes to the justice system and so that it would treat our people better than it was. One of the other things that connects us with this church is that when in the 1950s, early 1950s, large numbers of Pasifika were coming here to the city of Auckland. Many struggled with their English language. Language classes were being held here. English language classes were being held here. But that's a matter of record actually, or there is a little clip on New Zealand on screen. Inside this church, young Pasifika came here to work and realised that one of the barriers for them was language. So long before ESOL was a thing, long before English language acquisition was a thing, this church was already doing that. We also, in support of our young learners, our young students in the education system, very unfamiliar systems for many, we opened up homework centres to support their learning. One of those homework centres was here in this church. The other one was in Williamson Avenue at St. Clair's Church. So we have some very strong connections here with this church. And so today I want to reflect and to speak about some of those experiences that we had growing up here as a young migrant community in the late 50s, 60s in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And let me take you to a moment in time, a moment in history, to a family home in the inner city suburb of Arch Hill. Does anybody know where Arch Hill is? Yeah, it's just over there. A group of young Pasifika and Maori had gathered for a meeting that would eventually ignite a revolution in the way mainstream New Zealand treated Pasifika and Maori people. A meeting that would give Pasifika communities a megaphone through which to articulate and amplify the stand against the everyday racial prejudice and discrimination we were experiencing at the time. And so the Polynesian Panther Party was born the 16th of June 1971. Our dreams were sadly bigger than our bank accounts. Actually, we didn't even have bank accounts. But we had something infinitely more valuable. 3 powerful principles that would light our way through the racism of that time, that would light our pathway to our eventual agency that would enable us to stand as a people in our own mana in this land of Aotearoa. Number 1, non-violent resistance to racism. Number 2, mana Pasifika, empowering Pasifika people. Educate to liberate, liberating our minds from the stereotypes that were rampant at the time. Educating our minds about our own history as told by us. Educating our minds about our own heroes, our own stories, our own song. We were teenagers, really just kids. The average age was 16. But we were wielding something infinitely more potent than our fists. We wielded a vision. We shone a floodlight into the dark corners where injustice festered in our community. Tenants' support. So many of our people were being charged exorbitant rents for broken down, unlivable houses. And if they complained, they would be evicted. At the time, there was no such thing as tenancy agreements. So it was very easy for unscrupulous landlords to remove us by eviction and just throw all our possessions out on the street. As young 16, 17-year-olds, we organised rent strikes. We brought the landlords to the attention of the media, and they didn't like that. The legal aid support program. We desperately needed to know our legal rights. We had police investigation patrols because so many of us were being unlawfully apprehended, unlawfully detained and incarcerated. Someone had to watch the police because nobody was. The food and labour cooperatives. We were bringing affordable food to the communities in Ponsonby. We were bringing good, healthy, affordable food. And dignity and solidarity was the main currency. We had education classes, as I mentioned earlier, to grow critical thinking and critical thinkers. We weren't just protesting, we were protecting. We weren't just resisting, we were reimagining what justice could look like for our people. Our legal aid booklet was a response to the police brutality, the unlawful arrests and the detentions that were happening so frequently in our community. Long story short, we just didn't know our legal rights. And so we became easy targets for a biased police department. With the help of Auckland's top criminal lawyer, David Longy, may he rest in peace, who was also alarmed at the disproportionate arrest rates for Maori in Pasifika. Together we created a legal aid booklet, a little bit smaller than this one, and we translated the legal rights of every person, that every person should know, into every major Pasifika language and English. We also knew that many of our own people were not literate in their own language, so we created illustrations and diagrams. It was revolutionary, it was life-changing, it was transformative. And the impact was immediate. The police arrest rates plummeted. And why? Because suddenly our people had the law in their back pocket. With this knowledge in our pockets, we could look at the police in the eye and say to them, no, you may not do that. I know my rights. For the first time, we were saying that. This wasn't just legal information. It was a shield. It was an armour of dignity. No longer were we going to be visible only as a deficit statistic in an outdated justice system. We didn't just stop there. Our police investigation patrols followed what was then a team policing unit, specially organised groups of police who routinely policed areas where large numbers of Pasifika and Maori congregated. We carried notebooks taking down descriptions and badge numbers of the police. We were there to witness. We were there to make the police think twice about what they were doing. We shone a light in the shadows and let our people know that there is somebody who is going to stand with you when you are being talked to by the police. Why did we have to protect ourselves from those meant to protect us? Well, because the badges bore not just numbers, but the weight of systemic racism in a blue uniform. Then came 1981, and the nation could no longer look away. During the Springbok tour, New Zealanders watched in horror as police batons cracked skulls, bloodied and bruised the faces of New Zealanders. Middle-class mums, bearded dads, university students, priests, ministers, nuns, beaten like criminals for standing up to apartheid. Anybody remember the clown incident? Clowns, yes. There you go. And perhaps for the first time, the nation caught a glimpse of what was our daily reality. That was how the rule of law was upheld. Long batons, barricades, barbed wire, excessive use of force. So much violence. But that is what racism needs to survive. It needs power, legislation. It needs violence. And we saw that there in graphic detail, beaming into our living rooms through our television sets, headlined in all the local media and international media. It was absurd. It was horrific. It was a mirror. And in that mirror, Pākehā New Zealand saw the truth Māori and Pasifika had known for decades. I want to turn now to something very local and something very meaningful to us here this morning, to a church, something sacred, to a Sunday, a worship service, to a scene that should be serene. Families, much as we did today, gathering for worship. Men, women, mums, dads, grandparents, elders, babies, children. Their voices lifted in prayer, their songs soaring to the rafters, their minds stilled in Scripture. The burdens of the world paused for a moment, because in church, in this sanctuary, there is supposed to be peace. And then, boom, the doors flew open, police stormed in, no warrant, no explanation, only fear. Children screaming, mothers crying, elders stunned and bewildered. Is this an attack? The sanctuary defiled. People running for cover. This didn't happen in some war-ravaged land or in a country that persecutes people for their faith. This happened in Grey Lynn, just across the road here at Crummer Road. During the night, during the height of the dawn raids, and this happened under orders signed into law by those who legislate evil. Even the minister was hauled off like a criminal. Worship turned to wailing. Faith turned to fear. The praises to lamentations. Nothing was sacred anymore. The Immigration Act of 1964 gave the authorities jurisdiction to do exactly what they did in Crummer Road and everywhere else before and since then. It was an act that was built on the scaffold of racism that had its origins in Europe, but clothed and embedded in settler colonial culture and ideology. The same ideology that informed the raids on Parihaka, Orako, Okahupe, Rangiaupia, Te Uruwera, and Crummer Road. And Isaiah's words blaze their way across 3 millennia and speak to the lawmakers of our time and of every time. Woe to you who legislate evil. Woe to you who made Crummer Road happen. The lawmakers and enforcers denied that there were racially targeted dawn raids and random checking going on in New Zealand. But the numbers tell a very different story. 30% of illegal immigrants at the time were Pasifika, 70% were European from the UK and North America. But Pasifika accounted for 86% of the deportations. Across a 3-day weekend in Auckland, 200 homes were raided, 856 people randomly stopped on the street and asked for proof of their immigration status. It wasn't just Samoans and Tongans who needed a visa to be here who were stopped. It was anybody who was brown, because the authorities were not able to distinguish brown from brown. Even tangata whenua was stopped and asked for proof of their immigration status. Here we have the immigrants telling tangata whenua, or asking tangata whenua for evidence of their legal status. But we can better grasp the full impact of these numbers when we understand that in a typical Pasifika household at the time there would be mum, dad, and at least 5 children, including infants, plus one more relative, maybe even another family. But let's just stick with the numbers, number 8. And multiply that by the 200 homes and add to that the 856 random checks. That's a total of 2,456 people, 2,456 souls. But of that number, only 23 illegal immigrants were captured. The 23 illegal immigrants represent less than 1% of the total of 2,456 people. Less than 1%. But 100% of the 2,456 felt 100% of the violence, 100% of the fear, 100% of the humiliation, 100% of the indignity. 2,433 were innocent. 2,433 had every legal right and moral right to be in Aotearoa, New Zealand. These were the numbers we were not supposed to see. And I reiterate what is on the wayside pulpit outside of this church. The question, does anyone remember what is out there on that board there? The question, or to the effect, words to the effect, that it's not what you're looking at is the question. It's what you see. So we can look at these numbers, but we don't see the hidden figures. We don't see them because we were never supposed to see them. There was not a single dawn raid or a random check in the suburbs where the majority of illegal immigrants from the UK and North America were likely to be living. In 2023, 2 years after the government's apology for the dawn raids, a Tongan family was dawn raided. Immigration called it an out-of-hours compliance visit. Out-of-hours compliance visit that just happened at dawn. For Pasifika, it was more than just a fancy name for dawn raids. It was a betrayal of trust. In the ensuing outrage, Pasifika voices joined in one accord with the voices of mainstream New Zealand demanding a please explain from the government. It ignited a review of that legislation around the so-called out-of-hours compliance visits. You're able to find that report. It'd be entitled Heron, Casey and Barrow Report on out-of-hours compliance visits. The review effectively just moved some of the legal architecture around, but did not remove the practice of dawn raids altogether. So they can still happen. What fell out of the review was the fact that from 2015 to 2022, the number of prosecutions and deportations by means of out-of-hours compliance represents less than 1% of the total number of deportations achieved by other means. Only less than 1%. These numbers mirror the less than 1% in that egregious 3-day weekend over 50 years ago. Join the dots. Why then does the current Immigration Act still sanction dawn raids if they only ever yield less than 1%? Why? Why continue the practice? Why legislate? It makes absolutely no sense to anybody who is even the least sophisticated. It makes no sense. Isaiah's words are not just words of judgment. There is also hope and restoration because God's justice is not blind. It sees the marginalised of our world. It sees and hears the cries of despair. It sees the innocence of that frightened child as it watched its parents being led away in handcuffs at dawn. So what now? Now we preach. We preach. And in the famous words attributed to Francis of Assisi, we preach all the time, and if necessary, use words. We remember. Remembering is a powerful thing. Because if we don't remember, we will just repeat the same things that we've done before. We resist. We make that one more brave step towards a just world, that one more prayer, that one more song, that one more hymn that we sang this morning, to make that step towards a different world, towards a world where justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. We make our prayer, we say our prayers, make our prayers protest, and make our protest prayer. And we do this Because those who legislate evil still walk the corridors of government. Because racism still holds a pen, still writes policy, still knocks on the doors at dawn. So we walk with memory. We walk with courage. We stand with Isaiah and the whole prophetic tradition. And we walk with a very different law. The law of aroha, the law of love, the law of liberation, the law that says and dares to say and dares even to think that another world is not only possible, it is already being born. Let it be so. Amen. Nā reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you, Alec, for a story that was both sobering and inspirational. And I'm sure that we all look forward to the Q&A afterwards to hear from you and Milani. Also, quite apart from the, I think what strikes me is it's not just a story from the distant past. It is something that is continuing and important for us to recognize that, not just a relic of our past by any means, but something that continues here in New Zealand and in other places in the world, certainly in my home country of the USA. My country of my birth. I'm trying to get away from saying my home country. I've lived in New Zealand for 30 years and been a citizen for much of that time. My closing words are an excerpt from Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt's essay entitled Our Faith. By no means are we Unitarian Universalists perfect. We often fail as much as we succeed. Yet even when we have broken our vows 1,000 times, we return to this essential work of justice and liberation for all. We do the work best when we remember what church is and what it is not. Church is not a place to hide. It is not the place to get away from the world. It is not a place where we get to pretend that the lives we live in our particular situations are not terribly complex, often confusing, and sometimes depressing. Church is the place where we stand together with one another, look the world in the eye, attempt to see clearly, and gather strength to face what we see with courage and, yes, with joy. And finally, let us go forth in love, but not in silence. Let us seek understanding, but never acceptance of injustice. Let us have goodwill towards all, but be courageous in standing with the oppressed and standing up to the oppressors. Because the future we want will not come from waiting. It will come from choosing again and again to defend what matters most. Chris, could I ask you again to come forward and extinguish the chalice, please?
Just realised the thing I forgot to put.
Just talk amongst yourselves. Just kidding. Chris will be right with us. We don't want Chris burning her fingers, so. Or true. So join with me if you wish. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. So, Alec and Milani, I'm going to suggest that you come and stand where I'm standing. I'll take the microphone to people when they wish to ask questions so that the people on Zoom can hear, if that's okay. And I would just say before, or as you're coming up, that Alex Geard wrote a note in the chat saying she's just reserved one of Milani's books from the Wellington Library. So. So the people on Zoom are also welcome to ask questions, unless Tess can monitor that. And in the meantime, anyone in the church. I would just maybe get things started by asking if you could tell us a bit about the Legacy Trust and sort of why you felt like that is important now to have, well, since 2011, to have such a trust.
You're the chair.
Thank you. We formed the Legacy Trust at the same time as the Apology, because we wanted to involve the young people and rejuvenate our programs, which we have two main programs. We've got Educate to Liberate in Schools program, which has been, it started in 2011. So we've spoken to thousands and thousands and thousands of Kiwi kids all over New Zealand with the school visits, and so it's just telling them about our experiences of racism back in the 70s, and so we see it as a way of conscientising the kids to think critically. And also we have our living room program, because it was so successful that the teachers wanted a workshop as well. So we have a corporate program called Our Living Room, where we speak to the whole history of settler colonialism in the Pacific and how it is acting out in New Zealand at the moment. So the Legacy Trust is really important, and it's for the future, and we hope to swell our numbers. We're just sort of starting at the moment. So how many do you think we have at the moment? About 30?
About 2.
Yes, so that's a bit about the Legacy Trust. So, thank you. Any other questions?
Do you have a program where you encourage the police to give talks at the schools to try and get a relationship with the young people with the police?
Well, not surprisingly, we haven't been invited by the police department to come and give our talks. But we do work with a colleague called Dr. Simone Bull, who works, her program is called War Walk, the War Walk. Any of you familiar with the War Walk? Great. In it she talks about the colonial experiences from a Maori perspective. And she was an ex-police person herself, so she's part of their training program. So, you know, the Maori component of the racism is being handled, but not the Pacific component yet, but there's hope.
When I was younger, our schools were much more mixed with Maori Pākehā, and I don't come from Auckland, and I've noticed like what I'd call a real division. And for an example, many years ago, and my son's 50 now, but when he was young, he was quite homophobic, which was very worrying for me, until he came to work in Ponsonby. And by working with gay people, he lost that. He became quite empathetic. And I feel that unless children are mixed of all ethnicities in schools, and of course that gets back to the housing problem, it worries me, this division, even in Auckland, between South and North. Have you got any comments on that?
Oh, what was the question, sorry?
The question is, have you got any comments about the need for children to mix more with different ethnicities? And I feel that the schools are getting quite divided between white and brown.
Yes, when we talk to the kids and the teachers, we make the distinction between cultural identity and ethnic identity. They are two separate things. Cultural identity, our kids have in bucketfuls. You don't need to teach them much of that at all. You know, the creativity, the performance, and all that. What they are needing in the schools, and which we try to portray in our bucket list for the apology. We presented government with a bucket list of what we, the Panthers, wanted from the apology. Of course, it was ignored. But one of them was teaching to make te tiriti compulsory in the school curriculum, to make Māori studies compulsory in the curriculum, to make racism compulsory in the curriculum, and for Pacific studies and Māori studies. So that's what we were fighting for. So the ethnic identity is teaching our kids to be proud of their roots, their stand up in their own mana in terms of their ethnic identity, whatever that is. And of course it also incorporates what I call the 3 C's, the ideology and ideas behind white supremacism, which is colonialism, Christianity, and capitalism. That's the ideology behind white supremacy and racism, and legislation which reflects that. So that's what we need in schools, the kids to understand their socio-historical positioning in their worlds and in their own realities. And so that's, the kids who have gone to our workshops get that. We even go to primary schools, and there was one question which a young blonde blue-eyed boy in the front row had his hand up for a question, and his question was, does racism hurt? So we have kids now that understand racism from all the levels right up to tertiary. We give workshops to medical students at the University of Auckland, the future leaders of Aotearoa. And this is what I think this government does not realise, that Aotearoa has changed. We have people who will stand up against racism now, because we've had 50 years experience of it already from our experience in the 70s. So I think, oh, we've got 2 hands going up. All right. Yes.
How would you choose, who would you choose to front those education issues over those 3 C's? From what perspective? How would you run it? How would you run the education?
How will we run the
Education.
Oh, how we run education. Well, I was going to share a little bit about our own educational experience here as migrants, first generation New Zealand-born migrants here in Aotearoa. The education system that we were raised up in was a very monocultural one, and much of the education that we were having was a monocultural, Eurocentric education. So it was very hard for us to relate to this. In my experience, there will be others with different versions of the same thing. The particular school I went to was not particularly friendly to non-Europeans. There was a roll of 1,100, and on the part of that roll, only 40 people were not European, not part of it. So if we were to look at how we could, I mean, I go there now to that same school and to every other school, and I see that our cultural motifs are everywhere. Māori language, Pacific languages are more and more in use today in schools, and this would have only been a dream for us back then. If we could go to a library and see our books about our own stories in the library, it would have been a little bit more friendly for us, and would have made a lot more progress, I think. So if we were to design an education system, I don't think it matters too much who is fronting it. It's what that is being taught that matters. And so we follow this pedagogy of educate to liberate, which is encouraging thinkers to think critically, students to think critically about their own reality. And in the process of that, to find within that their own agency, to be able to stand up in their own mana, whatever that is, and to speak out against the things, the harmful things that are impacting on their communities and on them as individuals. It's a pedagogy that comes from the poor. It's a pedagogy that comes from the oppressed. It's a pedagogy that was born out of a huge need for a liberating education, an education that was able to see a greater part of the world than what was being offered in mainstream education. Our own young people are beginning to understand and to participate in that pedagogy, because now they're able to see their own heroes. Now they're able to talk about their own stories freely and not be afraid that they would get a detention or if they spoke their own language, they'd be thumped for it. So it is really the pedagogies that we are looking at, as opposed to who necessarily fronts it or not. I hope that's some part of the answer to your question.
Yes, thank you. It does.
Rachel.
I see, I hear you. Sorry, just try and understand what you said. I think you were saying that you were empowering
Yes.
the children themselves to critically think
And come to the where they want to be and where we should be in a perfect world.
That's,
Can I just say something there that often the kids will say, I want to be a panther. How can I be a panther? And so we lead them to our 3-point platform. If you want to be a panther, work hard to annihilate racism in all its forms. Number 2, if you want to be a panther, celebrate your own ethnic identity. Know your roots. Because all the different ethnic groups in our schools do not know their roots. And we're not taught it in the schools. And thirdly, educate to liberate. A liberation education. So that platform, I mean, thanks Alex for ordering my book, but when I was going for the associate professor position, I had to create a narrative of all my publications. And there are about 100, well there are about 100 now, books, articles, reports, and they all centred around our platform, our 3-point, without me knowing. I mean, I do write the best when I'm mad. So, you know, a third of my publications were about racism, the other was about, you know, mana Pasifika, and the third one was just educate to liberate. So that's how strongly we Panthers have lived out our platform. As one of our other members, Tingi Launes, I don't know if you've heard of him, a musician, famous musician, he advocates the platform through his music. Al does it through his theology, and I do it through academia. But that's how strong our fight, you know, our strength and power is in terms of telling our stories.
So we'll take one more from the audience here, and I know there are other questions here on the stream, so we'll probably focus on those. So Rachel, you had your hand up.
Tēnā korua. Thank you both. Thank you, Alec, for your sermon. I heard a sermon from a member of the Southern Black, a mate of Martin Luther King's, who is still alive. I heard a sermon from him, and he had the same ideas that you've just talked about, Melania, about colonisation, Christianity, and capitalism. And it was moving, but I just reflect that it's international. But that's not my question, and I don't want to be one of those people who makes a speech, but it's too late. What can we do individually or as an organisation, as a church, to support the Legacy Trust? Can we belong? Can we donate? Can we get active? What can we do to support it?
Well, Alec, you can speak after me if you want, but I think you're doing it already.
Yeah, you already
You
know.
you are doing it. I was so impressed with, you know, the signage outside there. That's exactly what we as the Legacy Trust stand for. So you're doing it already, and I really congratulate you and the
Yeah.
work that you're doing.
It's already a social justice committee here, a social justice committee here in this church. And I just think over the time that we have been aware of the Unitarians, that they've always been active. They haven't stopped. But some of the clues to what we can actually do were in the hymns today. You know, so maybe sing the hymn again. Okay, so a question from...
Yeah, okay, and I think you have just answered Betsy's question, which was around, is it possible for organizations to become members of the Legacy Trust? So just encouraging us to continue doing what we're doing.
We always get that question, and what we say to that is we simply need support as opposed to membership. We more than anything we need support in our activities. Yes.
Okay, and one more question from Alex, who said she couldn't find a copy of Educate to Liberate, the original Polynesian Panther Guide to Legal Rights. It's in the National Library, but not held locally, and Alex is based in Wellington. And it doesn't seem to be online. She's curious about what was in it and whether there's a modern equivalent.
Okay. It was totally remiss of me to bring some books with us this morning, because I'm happy to give to your library a book on the Polynesian Panthers. The legal aid booklet is an appendix in that publication, and there was a reprint in 2015 of that original book, and in that it's got the legal aid booklet as an appendix. So I'm happy to give copies to you. And my own book, which is called The Platform, The Radical Legacy of the Polynesian Panthers. It's my own story. And in that book I asked the question, was it my Samoan upbringing as a proud Samoan woman, or was it the radical efforts of the Panthers which made me so successful in my Educate to Liberate programs and things? So it's only a little BWB book, you know, the little BWB books, but I'll give you the 3 copies to the church. So Alex, you know, if you get hold of those books, or that's where you'll find our legal aid booklet.
You've got a thumbs up from Alex.
Conscious of the time, and Leo is waiting for morning tea, so I'll just say on behalf of all of us, thank you so much. It was a wonderful sermon, and the Q&A was equally enlightening and inspiring, so thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.